White pawn marches to e4. Black pawn marches to c6. White pawn marches to d4. Black pawn marches to d5. White pawn marches to e5. Black bishop marches to f5. White pawn marches to h4. Black pawn marches to h5. White bishop marches to d3. Black bishop captures bishop at d3. White queen captures bishop at d3. Black pawn marches to e6. White bishop marches to g5. Black queen marches to b6. White knight marches to d2. Black knight marches to e7. White knight marches to f3. Black queen moves sideways to a6. White pawn marches to c4. Black knight marches to f5. White kingside castling. Black knight marches to d7. White pawn marches to b3. Black bishop marches to a3. White rook moves sideways to d1. Black rook moves sideways to c8. White queen retreats to b1. Black bishop retreats to e7. White bishop captures bishop at e7. Black king captures bishop at e7. White rook moves sideways to c1. Black rook moves sideways to d8. White rook marches to c3. Black knight marches to b6. White rook moves sideways to c1. Black pawn captures pawn at c4. White knight captures pawn at c4. Black knight captures knight at c4. White rook captures knight at c4. Black rook marches to d5. White queen marches to e4. Black rook moves sideways to d8. White rook marches to c2. Black queen moves sideways to b6. White rook moves sideways to d2. Black king retreats to f8. White queen moves sideways to f4. Black queen retreats to c7. White queen marches to g5. Black pawn marches to g6. White queen marches to f6. Black king moves sideways to g8. White pawn marches to b4. Black queen moves sideways to e7. White queen marches to f6. Black king moves sideways to g8. White pawn marches to b4. Black king moves sideways to g8. White pawn marches to b4. Black queen moves sideways to e7. White pawn marches to b4. Black queen moves sideways to e7. White queen captures queen at e7. Black knight captures queen at e7. White pawn marches to g3. Black knight marches to f5. White king moves sideways to f1. Black pawn marches to a5. White rook moves sideways to c2. Black rook moves sideways to b5. White pawn captures pawn at a5. Black rook captures pawn at a5. White rook moves sideways to b2. Black rook marches to d7. White rook moves sideways to b4. Black pawn marches to b5. White rook moves sideways to c2. Black knight retreats to e7. White knight retreats to d2. Black rook moves sideways to a7. White rook retreats to b2. Black rook marches to a4. White knight marches to f3. Black king marches to g7. White king marches to e2. Black rook marches to a3. White knight retreats to d2. Black knight marches to f5. White knight marches to f3. Black rook marches to a4. White rook moves sideways to d2. Black rook moves sideways to c4. White rook marches to d3. Black rook moves sideways to a4. White rook retreats to d2. Black king retreats to f8. White rook moves sideways to c2. Black rook captures knight at f3. White king captures rook at f3. Black knight captures pawn at d4 and gives check. White king escapes check at e3. Black knight captures rook at c2 and gives check. White rook captures knight at c2 and breaks check. Black rook retreats to a6. White king marches to d4. Black king marches to e7. White king marches to c5. Black king moves sideways to d7. White rook moves sideways to d2 and gives check. Black king escapes check at c7. White rook marches to d6. Black rook captures pawn at a2. White rook captures pawn at c6 and gives check. Black king escapes check at d7. White rook moves sideways to b6. Black rook captures pawn at f2. White rook marches to b7 and gives check. Black king escapes check at e8. White rook marches to b8 and gives check. Black king escapes check at e7. White rook retreats to b7 and gives check. Black king escapes check at f8. White king marches to d6. Black rook moves sideways to d2 and gives check. White resigns and black wins the game.